Hello and welcome to All 32. My name is Arabia, and here we talk all things football. It's Thursday, and you know what that means. We are here today with my co-host, Coach George Hegeman. How are you, Coach George?
Look, doing very well. Can't wait to get started. I'm excited about the topics we got on board today.
So am I. I'm excited about today's topics. I'm excited about all of our topics always because obsessed with football. But just as a heads up, next week, everybody, we are doing AFC versus NFC. Which conference is the better conference? So the outline is Tuesday with Matthew, we're going to talk about which conference is better as far as its rookies. Like over the past 2-3 years, which conference has come out with the best rookies? On Wednesday with Champ Bailey, we're talking about which conference has the better skill positions. Okay, so quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. We're going to talk cornerbacks as well, like things like that. Which conference has the better skill positions? And then Thursday with Coach George, we're talking about which conference has the better trenches, offensive line, defensive line. And by the end of that, we're going to see which conference is better. Is the AFC the better conference or is the NFC the better conference? And we're going to have two special guests on with us each day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So look out for that. First episode with NFC versus AFC will be Tuesday with Matthew. So check that out at 4 p.m. Eastern time when it comes out. Coach, really looking forward to that. Should be interesting.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty dope. I can't wait till we have an opportunity to see what everybody thinks.
Yeah, me too. But for now, it's time for Trench Talk with Coach George. Okay, so the Packers play the Browns in Cleveland. It's the Browns' first non-division game. I want to say that this Browns defense is going to show up, but I don't think so. Week 2, they gave up 41 points to the Ravens. I know it was a division game, so you do have to leave some room for grace there, and it is the Ravens. They tend to have a higher-powered offense, but I just don't see them getting it done versus the Packers. I think the Packers come in and take over their trap and give Cleveland their third loss of the season. What do you think, Coach George?
Look, you hit it right on the head. The trap will definitely be taken over by the Packers. I think they're unstoppable at this point in the season. Again, because we're talking about trench talk, you got to look at what they are efficient and effective at. And up front, on the offensive side of the football, their five guys know how to get to the defense in a way that most teams don't. Why? Because they've got the weapons behind them that they know all they got to do is give their running backs a crease. All they got to do is give Jordan Love a little extra time and he's going to find open receivers. So when you go into games like that up front as a starting five offensive line, you feel extremely confident about what you can do. Now, Cleveland, on the other hand, again, they played against the Ravens last week. It was, a divisional game, so they know each other. But at the same time, I still look for Cleveland to come back and play better on defense, but nowhere near good enough to beat the Packers.
Yeah, in week 1, they gave up 17 points to Bengals offense that doesn't have a great offensive line, that had a mixture of Joe Burrow and Jake Browning. I think they're just going to fall to the Packers week 3. I think we both agree Packers win that game. All right, let's move on to Rookie Watch. A rookie for today is left tackle for the Patriots, Will Campbell. He was a 4th overall pick out of LSU. Coach George, talk to me about what you've seen from Will Campbell so far this season.
Yeah, Will has always been like one of my favorite offensive linemen. And here's a reason being. At LSU, dominant, stalwart type of guy, just comes up, lunch pail, comes in and does his work and goes home. Not a whole bunch of flash about him. One of the things that he went into the draft with a lot of people saying was that his arms wasn't long enough to play offensive tackle in the NFL. Well, listen up. He played and started at offensive tackle at LSU for all the years he was there, gave up almost 0 sacks his entire career. So here's the thing you got to look at. When a guy can play in the SEC at that level every single week, every single year, his transition into the league isn't going to be as hard as somebody who's played somewhere else and didn't have that success in college. Well, Will has proven that over the first couple of weeks, going against the Raiders the first week and then turning around and playing against Bradley Chubb, and the Dolphins last week and having excellent games. Now, he does need to clean up some things from the run blocking perspective, but pass blocking, he does what he does with the short arms they said he had.
Yeah, he kept Jaden Daniels clean at LSU. That team was really, really good. Jaden Daniels, Will Campbell, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors. I'm excited to see what he will do and what Drake May will be able to do with Will Campbell there. He gave up 1 sack so far this season, 4 pressures, and 3 penalties. 3 penalties isn't fantastic through the first 2 weeks. Again, just a few things that he can clean up, but there's a lot more football to be played. So we're going to keep an eye out for Will Campbell. Let's move on to predictions. First, let's talk about Steelers Patriots. Now, the Steelers did surprise me last week with their 31-17 loss to Seattle in their home opener. But what I will say is they were dealing with injuries. So the injury report came out yesterday. A few players did not participate in practice. Listen to these players who did not participate. Cornerback, Darius Slay. He's resting. Cornerback, Joey Porter Jr., hamstring. Safety, Deshaun Elliott, knee. Linebacker, Alex Highsmith, ankle. Linebacker, TJ Watt, resting. There were more players that were limited participation. Also, Patrick Queen was a full participant. He had an oblique thing happening, but he was a full participant. If injuries and guys being banged up is a factor in this game, that could definitely make a difference, because I think when it comes to the Steelers, their starters are fantastic, especially on defense. But once you kind of go into the rotational guys, into their core depth, the drop-off is a little bit further than some other teams. So if they have to rely on their rotational guys more than they do their starters, I think that will be a factor. And most teams are like that, right? Like, they're starters for a reason.
Right.
But I think if injuries play a factor, we could see a closer game than anticipated. Otherwise, I do have the Steelers winning this game. What do you think?
It's going to be really interesting because I was just as shocked as probably most of the nation was watching the Steelers last week. They just didn't look like the Steelers. And like you said, it's a home opener, so you expect more energy. But when you really factor in, the fact they got some guys that are dealing with some ailments, that changes what guys actually look like, believe it or not. So going into this game, I think one of the hardest things to do is to be available when you're injured. So with that being said, as much as I would like to choose the Steelers this week, I just don't see them getting it done. I just don't see them getting it done with the injuries that they have.
Okay, so you have Patriots, I have Steelers in week 3. Let's definitely circle back to see how our predictions panned out. I like this. All right.
Listen. Here's the other thing I want to say too. I think the Patriots are a very sneaky team, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do. I don't, just because they don't have like the big fanfare names like they've had in the past. They coach really well. They got some really good, solid players, and they're going to play football the right way. So
Yeah.
I think they can catch the Steelers at the right time.
I completely agree with that 100%. And I think the Seahawks are also that kind of team. The
Correct.
Seahawks are a very sneaky team year after year who can catch a giant, like give a giant their first L or an L during the season. So the Steelers are coming up against two teams who, just on paper, you might be like Steelers, obviously, but really when you play the game and line them up, it could be a better matchup than we really think.
Agreed.
Next game, a division game, Broncos Chargers. I've said it once, I've said it a million times. I have the Chargers winning the AFC West. So that doesn't mean, though, that they're going to win all of their division games. Got to leave some
Correct.
wiggle room for these division games. But I do have the Chargers winning versus the Broncos. I think last week it wasn't the defensive game that I thought the Broncos were going to have. The Chargers, I think offensively, defensively will be too much for Denver. What are your thoughts, Coach George?
We talked about this early on, I think, our first show about how good, the AFC West is in terms of coaching. And so you got Sean Payton going up against Harbaugh, guys that know each other really, really well. They've got teams that I think that know each other really, really well, even though they've changed some personnel. To me, I'm going with the Broncos this week, and the main reason is because I think defensively they'll show up a whole lot better. I'll look for them to really challenge Denver's line. I look for Denver to really challenge the Chargers' offensive line. And I think that's where the game is going to be won and or lost. For me, I'm choosing the Broncos, not because I'm here in the Colorado area, but because I think they'll be geared up, ready to go, especially after suffering, a loss last week.
I can see Sean Payton coming back and adjusting. Also, there's a lot of Denver bias on this All 32 panel, with you being in Colorado for the Buffaloes,
Nope,
Champ
nope.
Bailey having played for the Denver Broncos. I don't know if Matthew has a Denver bias, but I see the plot
Listen,
thickening
no,
here.
listen, listen. I understand what their bias might be, especially Champs. I have no alliance to the Broncos whatsoever, right? As a matter of fact, I got a bone to pick with them, but I'm just calling the game like the game need to be called, Arabia.
What's the bone that you have to pick with the
Listen,
Broncos?
listen. You know what? Maybe show 7, 8, 9. I might feel courage enough to get into it, but they know.
Okay, we'll save it. We'll save it for later. Next game is Chiefs Giants. Both teams are looking for their first win of the season. I don't believe in the Giants' paper defense. Good on paper, but in actual games, it's not showing up the way that I thought that it would show up. Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Sexy Dexy. This defense on paper should be performing a lot better than we think they should be performing, which brings up another point. We can't be so concerned with the name on the back of the jersey because some nobodies, no household names are out there making plays, but the ones who are on the cover, who we give a lot of attention to, aren't really performing up to our standard of them. So they gave up 40 points to the Cowboys in a fourth quarter where that defense just completely went missing. The Chiefs defense held the Eagles to 20 points, and they only gave up 27 points to the Chargers. I had the Chiefs getting their first win against New York and the Giants being 0-3 in the first 3 weeks. Coach George, who do you have?
You know what? I'm going to have to agree with you on this, Arabia, for this reason and this reason alone. The Chiefs starting out 0-2, they still have a Super Bowl pedigree. The challenge that they have is I don't think they have the guys that can stretch the field like they used to, so they're struggling there. However, Andy Reid is the coach of the century because of the things that he's been able to do and make the adjustments necessary to get his team on the winning side of the football. So with that being said, I just don't see the Chiefs going into the Giants, going into New York and suffering their third loss. Looking at the Giants, you're right. They've got all the top name pedigree guys on defense, especially on the defensive line, that you think should dominate. I just don't think they know how to play together yet, right? And going back, and we got to get some Cowboys in here. Because they played my Cowboys last week, and my Cowboys' young offensive line did a really good job against their defensive line, I just don't see them having success until they figure that part out. That success is not coming this week against the Chiefs.
Do you think if the Giants go 0-3, that Dable is on the hot seat?
No. I was actually having that conversation with somebody else. I don't think so yet. However, it is New York, and because it's New York, trust me, the paper is going to be crazy if they drop this third. So I wouldn't say he would be on the hot seat, but it's somebody turning up that little container, of butane, real high, slowly but surely on him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think some grace can be given because their first 2 games of the season were division games. They played the Super Bowl champion Eagles out of the gate, right? No, the Cowboys did. Who did the Giants play? We played the Giants. Okay, so they played the NFC reigning.
You don't remember beating them?
appearing
You don't remember?
Commanders.
You don't how no, hold on, tell me. How you gonna be the Commanders fanstress that you are and not know that you guys gave the Giants their first
Their
L?
first
How do you
L of the
not
season.
know this?
You know what? Let's time out really quick. I think people put the Commanders on me a lot harder than I put the Commanders on myself. And it's my fault because I definitely
It's
went
your fault.
super hard in the playoffs. I went crazy in the playoffs. So I see why people think I'm Mrs. Commander and just crown me as the Commanders representative. But I really do love all 32 teams. I love football more than I love the Commanders. So, my apologies for forgetting that the
So wait a
Commanders beat
minute.
the Giants
Just so the audience heard this correctly. You really do love all 32 teams.
So
correct?
What happened was
correct.
So let me tell you a quick story.
Oh.
My son, when I was thinking about names and getting my business registered like an actual LLC, I'm like, I think I like all 32 enough to make it my business name. My son is like, let's make it all 31 so we don't have to talk about the Cowboys. So I put 32 with an asterisk next to the 32. I'll talk about the Cowboys because I have to, and because they're in my division, and because we're rivals, and because they have a lot of primetime games, and because of you. But,
the hate is real. It's real.
Boo. Yeah, whatever. So we're talking about Giants Chiefs. Yeah, I had the Chiefs winning that game. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. I think that we can give the Giants some grace because division games, first with us, second with the Cowboys, then you play the Chiefs. So their schedule isn't the easiest coming out of the gate. I think once they start to get into maybe the Saints or whoever else, easier teams that they play, that's when we'll kind of be looking at Daboll. But my first coach to be fired this season absolutely will be Mike McDaniel. He's out of here. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Mike McDaniel is out of here. And
Wow.
in the first half of the season, for sure.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Last game is Lions Ravens. Now, Lions had a pretty bad loss week 1 to their division. The Packers look really, really good. So it actually wasn't that bad of a loss in hindsight. Then they come out and play super well week 2. They're coming up against a Ravens team, which to me, again, they have to prove that they can show up in big games this season. I'm going to say this is a potential Super Bowl matchup.
Ooh,
because
okay.
I had these two teams in the preseason being potential Super Bowl, like a Super Bowl matchup. Do I think that now? Still, maybe it's early, but this could potentially be a Super Bowl preview. I'm going to go Lions only because I don't believe in the Ravens in these big moments. What do you think?
Ooh, okay. I'm going to disagree with you for this reason alone. This is a trench talk show, right?
Yes.
I look for the Ravens to just maul them up front. They're going to maul them up front on offense. I just don't see the Lions being as defensively imposing up front as they've been in years past. And it's been shown over the first couple of weeks, right? Again, division opponent playing against the Green Bay Packers, but the Green Bay Packers went up and down the field on them like it was nothing, right? And then last week they turn around and not have a really good game last week. So for me, I look at what the Ravens can do offensively, right? They've got two runners in the backfield between Lamar and between Derrick Henry that are just extremely imposing. And they've got an offensive line that really knows how to play together. And lastly, a play caller that knows how to call plays for their strengths. So again, this is the other thing I'm thinking about. With what the Ravens went up to Buffalo and didn't do, they are making it a point to do going forward, right? Derrick Henry is running the ball angry right now, right? Losing that fumble first week of the game, national televised TV. He's a completely different player. Their O-line, I think they probably gel just as well as the Eagles O-line. And to me, the Ravens always got the right kind of attitude, especially in a game like this. There's no way that they go up in Baltimore and lose and win that game. I'm calling the Ravens here and out.
The part that gets me that I disagree with, which is where I think they disappear, is that they have a play caller that plays to their strengths. I think they do up until they kind of like outthink themselves. Like sometimes I think they
I'll
don't
give you that.
play power football. Like, what we have going on, try to stop it. They get cute and they're like, we're going to try to outsmart you and do all these things that we really don't have to do because we have the personnel to show our hand and make you beat us anyway. That's the part that frustrates me with them. I think they're fully capable with the players, the personnel is there. And the play calling is there up until I think they like outsmart themselves. So, wouldn't be surprised either way, but just as a prove it, I'm going Lions.
Okay, all right. So let's prove it. But see, here's the thing: by game 3, game 4, what you start to see is teams start to settle in to what they do the best. So the proof is in the pudding right now. They're a power football running team. So with that being said, you'll start seeing them make more calls, line up in more formations, and start leaning on what they actually are. I look for them to do that in this game and then walk away with the dub.
Either way, I think it should be a really, really good game. Excellent game.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to our next segment, College Quarter. Colorado Buffaloes play the Wyoming Cowboys Saturday night. Coach George, what's going on with the Buffs?
Look, we have to get the ship right. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think our guys understand, starting out 1-2 isn't something that anybody envisioned. But with that being said, we know we've got the coaches, we've got the players, the mindset, and we've got the realization that we have to get to 500. this weekend. So I look for our guys to come out and practice, the rest of the week with that in mind, and then go out on Saturday night and get this W.
How's Jordan Seaton doing? One of his trainers back home here, because he went to school in the DMV area. One of his trainers is one of the trainers that trains my son,
Right.
Coach Gibson. How's he doing? How's he developing? What do you see from Jordan Seaton?
Man, Seat is he's that guy. Like it's not very often that I'll put a tag on somebody, especially, a high school or college kid, but to be the type of player that we need him to be, we're seeing him every day approach it the way it needs to be approached. So he's one of those guys that we know what we're going to get from him in the game, regardless of who he's playing, what time we're playing, what type of defense they're playing. He's definitely one of our dogs, as we call it.
Okay, good. Well, we'll definitely be rooting for the Buffaloes and not the Cowboys, Dallas Cowboys,
Whoa.
Wyoming Cowboys, Coyote Cowboy. It doesn't matter. We'll be rooting for the person lining up against whatever Cowboy is playing.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. That's what
every
we
time.
doing. That's
Yeah.
what we doing.
Absolutely. That's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week when we start our NFC versus AFC. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games, and I'll see you on Tuesday.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.